The United States of America is more than what you read in textbooks. Its history has achievements and atrocities. It is a story of freedom and oppression, innovation and exploitation, hope and hypocrisy. Today, we will go through the complete history of America from pre-colonial times to the present, examining both the light and the darkness. Before Europeans arrived, over 10 million Native Americans lived across North America. They belonged to over 574 tribes, spoke more than 200 languages, and had unique cultures and civilizations. The Cherokee, Apache, Sioux, Navajo, and Iroquois, among others, had been living on this land for centuries. This was their home, until colonization brought tragedy. In 1492, Christopher Columbus arrived in America. This was not a discovery, it was an invasion. Between 1492 and 1900, the Native American population fell from over 10 million to about 300,000. Europeans used biological warfare, spreading diseases like smallpox that killed 90% of coastal New England tribes. Massacres like Sand Creek 1864, Bear River 1863, Wounded Knee 1890, and Maria's River 1870 slaughtered thousands. The Trail of Tears in 1838–39 forced 4,000 Cherokee to march from their lands, and children were taken to boarding schools to erase their culture. British General Geoffrey Amherst wrote about using infected blankets to exterminate Native Americans. Raphael Lemkin called this cultural genocide. It was deliberate, planned, and executed. African slaves first arrived in Virginia in 1619. By 1860, nearly 4 million black people were enslaved. Slavery lasted 246 years. Enslaved people were considered property, whipped, tortured, and separated from their families. Children born into slavery were automatically enslaved. The economy of the South relied heavily on slavery, especially after the invention of the cotton gin. In 1793, resistance existed. Nat Turner's Rebellion in 1831, the Amistad Revolt in 1839, Harriet Tubman, and the Underground Railroad. Between 1500 and 1900, an estimated 11 to 12 million Africans were forcibly brought to the Americas. Millions died during the journey. The American Revolution 1775 to 1783 fought against British taxation and led to independence in 1776. The Declaration of Independence stated, "All men are created equal." But slavery continued. Native Americans were denied rights, and women could not vote. The Constitution 1787 established a federal government, checks and balances, and the Bill of Rights in 1791. However, enslaved people were counted as 3/5 of a person for population purposes. Americans believed in manifest destiny, the idea that God wanted them to expand westward. Expansion stole Native American lands. The Louisiana Purchase doubled the country's size in 1803. The Indian Removal Act 1830 and the Trail of Tears 1838–39 forced Native Americans from their lands. The Mexican-American War 1846–48 seized California, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The California Gold Rush 1849 caused more land theft. Over 1,500 attacks and wars targeted Native Americans. Entire tribes were wiped out, and the buffalo were slaughtered to starve tribes. The Civil War 1861–1865 was fought mainly over slavery. Over 620,000 Americans died. Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, but initially focused on preserving the Union. Slavery ended with the 13th Amendment, 1865. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship and equal protection, and the 15th gave voting rights regardless of race. Reconstruction saw freed slaves gain some rights, black politicians elected, and schools established. But the Ku Klux Klan formed, terrorizing black communities, lynching people, and enforcing white supremacy. After Reconstruction, Jim Crow laws enforced segregation. Black Americans had separate schools, restrooms, restaurants, and public spaces. Interracial marriage was forbidden. Plessy v. Ferguson 1896 established separate but equal. But separate was never equal. Lynchings and sundown towns terrorized communities. 6 million black Americans moved north in the Great Migration. But discrimination continued in housing, jobs, and education. Legal segregation lasted nearly 100 years. Industrialization connected the nation with railroads and innovation, including electricity, automobiles, and telephones. America became a global industrial power. Workers were exploited with long hours, dangerous conditions, child labor, and low wages. Robber barons like Carnegie, Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan created extreme wealth inequality and monopolies. Immigration laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act 1882 and other restrictions targeted races and the disabled. World War I, 1917 to 1918. The U.S. entered after German attacks. 116,000 Americans died. The U.S. emerged as a world power. The Great Depression, 1929 to 1939. The stock market crash caused 25% unemployment, homelessness, and bank failures. The New Deal, under FDR, created Social Security, infrastructure projects, banking reforms, and labor protections. World War II, 1941 to 1945. The U.S. entered after Pearl Harbor. Over 405,000 Americans died. Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan were defeated. Millions were saved from the Holocaust. Japanese Americans were imprisoned in internment camps, losing homes and businesses. Atomic bombs killed over 210,000 civilians in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. After Jim Crow, Black Americans demanded justice. Key events include Brown v. Board of Education, 1954, Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott, 1955, the March on Washington and MLK's I Have a Dream speech, 1963, the Civil Rights Act, 1964, and the Voting Rights Act, 1965. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. were assassinated. Activists faced violence but persevered. The U.S. faced the Soviet Union in a nuclear and space arms race. Proxy wars included the Korean War, 36,000 U.S. deaths. Vietnam War, 58,000 U.S., 2 to 3 million Vietnamese deaths, and support of Mujahideen in Afghanistan, 1979 to 1989. The Cold War ended in 1991 with the Soviet collapse, leaving the U.S. as the sole superpower. War on drugs, started under Nixon, disproportionately affected black communities, causing mass incarceration. Iraq War, 2003 to 2011. Begun under false claims of 4,500 U.S. and 500,000 Iraqi civilian deaths. $2 trillion spent. Power vacuum created ISIS. Afghanistan War 2001-2021 longest to us. War 2,400 plus U.S. deaths. $2 trillion spent. Taliban returned. 2008 financial crisis. Wall Street greed. Predatory lending. Millions lost homes. CEOs not jailed. Trump was a businessman and reality TV star with no prior political experience. Controversies. Immigration policies. Muslim travel ban. Family separations. Racist comments and divisive rhetoric. Russia investigation and Ukraine scandal. Impeached twice, acquitted both times. COVID-19 mishandling. Over 400,000 U.S. deaths. January 6th Capitol riot. 5 deaths. Democracy attacked. Corruption, conflicts of interest, tax avoidance, attacks on institutions. He lost in 2024. Remains controversial and has deepened national divisions. Ongoing issues, systemic racism, police brutality, wealth gaps, and income inequality. Gun violence. 40,000 plus deaths annually. Climate change denial and corporate obstruction. Healthcare crises. Millions uninsured. Education, inequality, and student debt. $1.7 trillion. Extreme political polarization and misinformation. Balanced perspective achievements. Innovation, technology, cultural influence, democratic ideals, immigrant opportunities, scientific research, civil rights progress, failures. Native American genocide, slavery, systemic racism, imperial foreign policy, corporate influence, inequality. Historical amnesia. America is a complex, flawed nation with incredible achievements and unforgivable crimes. Its strength lies in the ability to protest, demand justice, and seek change. Its weakness is reluctance to acknowledge its dark history and ongoing discrimination. Every nation has a dark past. Greatness is not hiding mistakes, it is acknowledging them, seeking justice for victims, and preventing history from repeating. America continues to struggle with this reality. This is the complete story of the United States. Not whitewashed, not sugar-coated. The full truth. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. George Santayana.